We've been talking mainly about the 12 lives that were cut short just a year ago, and of course the survivors as well that saw that horrible event at the Borderline Bar and Grill. Now, many of them were college students and other young people, and they really, well, they had their whole lives ahead of them.
You're right, it was college night at Borderline. One of those young men who lost his life was Blake Dingman. He was training to become an electrician. NBC4's Beverly White sat down with Blake's family to hear about his life, his love of the outdoors, and really how his memory lives on. Beverly is live for us. Beverly?
That's right, Colleen. Blake Dingman dove into life, his family says, with open arms and big smiles. That's why they say their firstborn will live forever in their hearts.
It's a small family.
Blake Dingman's family proudly shared images of his smiles and infectious joy, the legacy of a loved one taken way too soon.
He could pretty much do any sport that he set his mind to. He played soccer, he was really fast at soccer, he was great at baseball.
At the time of his murder, Blake was 21, working for an electrician. His parents and brother Aiden recall his extreme love for life in their outdoor living room.
Blake and Aiden both helped Dan and I dig all the footings for the posts. We worked hard for this space so that our boys would have a place to bring their friends, because we love being with our kids. I would cry over the years, probably starting 3 years before this happened, thinking that they would move out and not live with us someday. That's how much I was going to miss him.
A flag at the Dingman's home proclaims "Hold her wide." Words were told Blake held dear.
It's just living wide open and loving people to the best of your ability every day.
Blake's passion for off-roading spawned friendships with outdoor enthusiasts who still embrace his family, many riding out to Ridgecrest to dedicate a bench in the desert in Blake's memory.
Everyone should live their life like my brother lived his. Always nice to people, always forgiving, always giving your all in everything.
Aiden now has the Ford Ranger truck and the philosophy that powered many of Blake's adventures.
If you're not pounding on your truck and beating it up, then you're not using it to its full potential. You got to hold her wide.
Sorrow and loss making Blake Dingman's tight-knit family even closer.
Grief doesn't leave you. You don't move on, you move with it. It sticks to you. You can't get rid of it. I hope the 12 are never forgotten. It's not just Blake.
Blake's mother went to high school with the mother of Jake Dunham. Years later, their sons became friends, and both were killed at Borderline. The families then held a combined memorial for Blake and Jake. I'm Beverly White. Back to you, Colleen and Chuck.
Such powerful emotion, Beverly, from Blake's family. You were one of the first reporters here. In fact, you were out here within minutes after we first learned of the shooting. What was that like?
Chuck, it was a fire hose of emotion, honestly. I was traveling with a photographer who has been to Borderline many times, so we didn't get lost. We made a beeline to the location and were overwhelmed by the stories that the people shared as they came streaming out of the establishment in shock and horror, but still gracious and kind as they searched for their friends and shared their stories with us.
You know, Beverly, so many of the pictures stay with us because, again, we were on the air with you that night. But when did you realize, actually, that it was as bad as it was? I'm talking to the sheriffs up here. You know, they thought it was a bar fight. No one had any idea. When did you realize it was going to be mass casualties?
I think the mass casualty realization came, Colleen, as we saw, excuse me, dozens of people running for their lives, then slowing down to ask us, had we seen their friends, could we help them find the people who were missing? And it just, like a wave of trauma and drama, as it washed over all of us, that a lot of these folks wouldn't be found. In fact, the family of Blake with whom we spoke says they rushed over when they got the call from his friends. They were there, believe it or not, before we showed up. They saw the deputy's body being taken away.
Beverly White is such a veteran reporter. She has covered hundreds, if not thousands, of stories. I'm wondering, Beverly, something like this, does it stay with you?
Chuck, it does. I would be lying if I said otherwise. The images of the people I just described for you running out, draped in, bloody tablecloths and stressed out beyond description, that stayed with me for weeks. I saw them in my sleep. And then over time, as you know, you have to move on, respect the first responders who stick with the families a lot longer than we ever will. And I think that's what this story boils down to, is how a community has bonded. You can see it streaming behind us, leaving the Healing Garden. That memory mitigates the pain from what we witnessed that night.
Beverly, you did sit down and spend some time with the Dingman family. You've had a chance to walk through here today and talk to people. What is the one thing that stays with you from today?
I think I'm just overwhelmed, as you probably are, at the emotions, the kindness. There's a lot of pain in this community, and closure is a myth, I've been told. But at the same time, they realize we're here to share their stories, and no one seems to be offended by that. Instead, they want to memorialize their loved ones as best they can, as often as they can. And there's a lot of gratitude here. I'm feeling and hearing spontaneous hugs and smiles from folks who have come to know us for the worst reason. And yet, there's nobody's taking it out on us. And sometimes that is the case, but not here, not in Thousand Oaks.
You're right.
A great reporter, but truly a great person.